Hi everyone. Today I'm in my home and we are going to talk about being prepared, specifically pantry preparedness. That's something I'm really passionate about. I have kids, a family, I have animals. I want to make sure I am prepared if the who knows what if happens. A couple years ago when COVID happened and everybody had to stay home for 2 weeks except the essential workers. Um, People were freaking out because, oh shoot, what about the grocery store? I need to be able to go to the grocery store and get my food. And that woke a lot of people up. But this was something I was passionate about even before that. I'm from Wisconsin, live in Montana. I'm used to a lot of snow. So what happens if I can't get out of my driveway for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it is? I want to be able to look in my pantry and be like, okay, it may suck, but I can make this, and that. So today we're going to talk about pantry preparedness. That means not including your refrigerator. So let's say electricity went out for 7, 8, 24 hours. And everything that's in your fridge, besides things like bread, if you're like me and you keep bread in your fridge, butter, some of those things that people keep in their fridge for freshness but don't necessarily need to be refrigerated. Otherwise, everything in the fridge is off limits. We are specifically talking about pantries. So we're going to look at mine. Here's my pantry. There we go. It's nothing special at all. It's a closet with some shelves. That's what it is. Some people would look at this and say, oh my gosh, your pantry's stocked full. I don't know why this is even a question. You have enough food to feed an army. And actually, I decided to do this. Video because it's actually time to go grocery shopping. What's in my pantry makes me uncomfortable, and I want to go to the grocery store. I just need to actually get there. So I went through my pantry and made up a bunch of pretend meals that I could present in this video. Other people would look at my pantry and say, wow, you should have gone grocery shopping 3 weeks ago. Through my research and my podcast listening to, the videos I've watched, people actually recommend having enough food of the basics, the necessities, such as flour, sugar, lard, things like that, enough for a year. That's a whole nother story. I do not have nearly enough space in my little house to even think about that at this point in my life. However, like I said, I want to have enough food to feed me and my family for at least a week, or no, 2 weeks. My thing is 2 weeks if needed. So the people that go without going to a grocery store for months on end, great for you. I'm just not there at this point in my life yet. So we're gonna look in my pantry. Guess what I do and don't have. So some meals that I came up with. Mine is breakfast. So if you look in my pantry, you will see oatmeal, Quaker oats, that's what I like. And then my husband, he likes the old-fashioned ones. They are both full and actually unopened because I finished my other one this morning. Now that I am down to my last one, I will go to the store and get another thing of oats because I always like to be ahead of the game. And then I believe it's called water glass eggs. So that's another thing. That's a whole nother story. But I have eggs in my pantry so that if all of a sudden my fridge goes kaput, I have eggs. So I am assuming in my pantry I have enough food, breakfast food. We're going with oats and eggs to get my family and I through for 2 weeks. Now, I'm a family of 4. Luckily, at this point, my kids are 2 and 3. They don't eat that much. And quite frankly, I don't honestly eat that much either. My husband, he can eat a whole lot. But that's why having what we do have for breakfast foods is sufficient for a couple weeks. So we're going to look at the foods for lunch and supper. Figured out is I can do fettuccine Alfredo. I have noodles, kind of a variety. I always have a stockpile. A bag here, some back there, a box here, some there. And I have a mix of an Alfredo. I'm not saying it's going to be fancy chicken Alfredo. I'm saying basic Alfredo. If I cut that in half and maybe make it 2 days in a row so that my sauce doesn't go bad, that's 2 meals covered right there. Next, we will look, sorry I'm moving the camera so much. Next, we have something as simple as rice, tomatoes, and beans. I tend to keep a thing of rice in my pantry. Once again, we're getting kind of low, so I feel I need to go get more. And as you can see, I don't store it the best way, so if a mouse got in there, well, shoot, I'd be out of my rice. But something as simple as rice. I always keep a bunch of tomatoes. Tomatoes, some beans for flavor and protein. That's another meal. I have enough rice, tomatoes, and beans to do that multiple times. So there's multiple meals checked off my list. You know, if I'm doing the math here, let's say I'm sticking with my 2 weeks. I eliminated breakfast because I have oats and eggs for breakfast. For lunch and supper for the rest of the 2 weeks, that's 28 meals. My fettuccine Alfredo was 2 meals. My rice, beans, and tomatoes just kind of mixed up a nice little, you could say it's a little Mexican dinner or whatever. I have enough of that for probably 2 to 4 meals. Great. I could do a potato soup. I always have at least a bag of potatoes. I don't go through potatoes as quickly as I used to, but I have enough potatoes here. I could do potatoes, an onion, some water. I always put in fake potatoes, and it gives it some flavor, some thickness. I wouldn't have the milk to put in there because remember, my milk went rancid because my fridge no longer works. But that's something that I could make if I want it to be a little bit creamier or just have that dairy flavor. I have some Parmesan cheese I could throw in there. Throw in some lard for a butter kind of thing. I mean, you just got to be creative. I could also do baked potatoes. I have a few extra potatoes. Let's bake them. I have some sweet potatoes here. Bake them. And then maybe with a can of pears. There's a meal. I'm not saying I'm getting all my protein. Hopefully I'd get some, once again, from my eggs or my beans. But it's something. Little fruit, little vegetable. Another option would be ramen. We always have a stockpile of ramen because my lovely husband likes to eat it periodically. That is by no means a good nutritional meal. But if crap hit the fan, guess what? My kids love ramen. I can eat ramen. My husband loves it. We have a few meals there. Something as simple as good old peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter, we always have a big thing of it because my kids love it. We have cans of jelly down here. Homemade preserved cans, they don't ever go bad. I mean, they do to a point, but peanut butter and jelly. Like I said, I have bread in the fridge. We'll talk about bread here in a minute, though. Another thing would be a broccoli soup. I like to keep things kind of like this, stocked. Just 1 or 2 of these periodically. But it's just an easy meal, one for when I'm feeling lazy. Add a little broccoli in here and it makes a decent soup. But then also for the what if. There's another meal. Johnny cakes. So, I've recently gotten into doing things with cornmeal. So I bought this big old bag of cornmeal. If you mix cornmeal with oil, a can of corn, which I'm sure I have somewhere in here, mix cornmeal, oil, corn, and a few other things that's in the recipe book, you have not the tastiest little Johnny cakes, but they are full of nutrients and they fill you up. Once again, great for the what ifs. Making homemade tortillas is so easy. I have this book that I recommend. It's called Breads. Simple as that. My husband bought it for me for Christmas. Flour tortillas. Can you get a whole lot easier than that? You need flour, salt, lard or shortening, and some water. Doesn't take milk. It's very, very easy. Learn how to make breads, tortillas, cornmeal things. It's easy. It takes time. But for the what ifs, or even just don't learn it, have a book at least, so that if something happened, you have the means to somehow make something. So when I need to feed my family, I can make some tortillas, grab that rice back over there, grab another thing of tomatoes, some beans, put it all together in a tortilla, and I have a good little burrito. Another meal would be pancakes. I always have a stockpile of flour. I keep my flour in here, then I have another bag, have a big old thing of sugar. You know, most pancakes, sorry for flipping so much, most pancakes call for milk. We don't have milk because it went rancid in the fridge, remember? Your pancakes will not be all that amazing. But luckily, you have syrup, hopefully, in your... So, syrup. It's not the good syrup, you know, the good homemade stuff. But I promise you, if you put enough of that on your pancakes without milk, they'll taste all right to eat. I could do a squash bisque. Once again, usually calls for milk, but I have a couple squash here. Throw in a cream of something. I always have a few cream of something. An onion. I could make a really good squash bisque. Hamburger helper. Yes, it calls for hamburger. Obviously, unless you're going to go butcher the cow I have out in my pasture, I don't have hamburger. You can still make the noodles and get the flavor. It's just without the hamburger. But when you're doing something like that, that's when you need to add a can of something. Whether it's fruits, vegetables, something for some extra nutrients. You got to do that if things were to get bad like that. Just something as simple as, once again, I have a ton of noodles. But get the noodles, maybe throw some olive oil on it, some spices, get a can of something on the side. You got yourself a mediocre meal. It'll fill your bellies. Tomato soup, once again, kind of a staple in my house. Always have tomato soup. Go back to your lovely little book over there. Make yourself some homemade bread. Homemade breads do not generally call for milk. There, you have some tomato soup with homemade bread. Next, I have just homemade cheeseless pizza. I know that doesn't sound that good, but once again, it fills your belly. I have some pizza sauce. You could cut up an onion, throw some onions on top. Maybe you're somebody that likes, extra tomato slices on your pizza. It's something. Even got some Parmesan cheese to throw on top. And lastly, a pot pie. Everyone thinks of chicken pot pie, which obviously is good. But you can make just a pot pie, put some biscuits on it. Once again, biscuits are quite easy. Generally, a call for milk. You can make do without. You mix the cream of whatever you got, maybe some peas and carrots, some beans, some peas, corn, whatever. Mix it all in with your cream of something, put some biscuits on top. You got a decent kind of pot pie something or another. So you may be listening to this video and think everything you just listed off sounds like crap. Yeah, it might. But do you have the means to feed your family if things were to get bad? And that goes beyond your two-legged family. How about your pets? My dog is over there. I love him dearly, and he's a guard dog for us. So down in the pantry, we keep his just tucked away in the corner. Now, this is a little big. But outside, I have a 50-pound bag of food. I know he's not running out of food anytime soon. Same goes for the rest of my animals. I can get through the first couple weeks at least. Next, we're going to talk about spices. Because, like I said, some of that food I talked about will taste real crummy without spices. So I have this cute little spice drawer thing. My spices are nothing special, by no means. But good old Mrs. Dash. I don't know. I think it goes great on everything. But pepper and salt. Those go so far. But, you get a little bit of garlic, thyme, paprika. These things will make bland food taste manageable. Baking powder. I talked about making breads and various baking things. You need baking powder and you need baking soda. Those are important. But if you're making soups for your family, cornstarch, once again, important. Have these on hand. You don't have to have a plethora, but have them on hand. Molasses. If you're stuck at home for more than a week, you're going to want to make cookies, I would assume. Have stuff to make fun things like that. Flour, sugar, eggs, molasses, butter. Butter does not need to be frozen or refrigerated. For storing long term, yeah, probably should. But have those things so that you can at least make enjoyable things. Vanilla is another good one. Speaking of which, I should buy more. But it's just another good thing to have because it just makes things taste better. And salt is cheap. Get a big thing of salt and have an extra one on hand. Always. It makes the worst food taste manageable, at least in my opinion. Have it on hand. But I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but you got to have this stuff on hand. You got to be prepared to a point. Because as we saw with COVID, things can go downhill really quickly. But it's besides being stranded at home for 2 weeks. What if money's tight? You really can't afford to go to the grocery store for a couple of weeks or till your next paycheck. Can you make do with what you have in your pantry? Or what if you're a single parent and you come down with a nasty cold or you hurt your foot, you can't physically get to the store? Do you have something that you can whip up and provide with? Granted, this all means you're cooking from scratch. You're not pulling a frozen pizza out of the freezer and popping it in the oven. This means you're using your imagination, you're whipping stuff together, you're making it work. It's hard. It's an acquired skill. I can't even say I'm that good at it, but I'm good enough to get by. And that's why I have recipe books. Recipe books are going to the wayside. That's fine. But having some hard copies is a good idea. Just a few. Just something to have. Oh, gosh, I feel like I could go on and on about this forever. I could go on about different topics, and someday I will, regarding preparedness, whether it's diapers or books or blah, blah, blah. But that's another day. Today was about pantry preparedness. I hope I taught you something, encouraged you, or just gave you some inspiration to kind of take a look and see where you're at. Have a great day. Thank you.